Now, I have the pleasure of introducing Mike Boyle. Now, Tammy gave me a list of maybe 100 things that we'll be here till tomorrow morning at breakfast. But this guy is different. Yeah. And he's the senior VP at CF, and he's got more titles than you can imagine. He's been the best doctor in the world, the best. Some of the things are unbelievable. Best teacher. I didn't know he was a teacher. So basically, we can say all you want, but I've dealt with this fellow for a couple of years now under, and sometimes there are extreme circumstances, and there's a way about him that's wonderful. And basically, we had a very seamless transition of management at CF, and Michael's been a big part of that. So rather than go through all his titles, take my word for it, he is as good as they get, and we're so lucky to have him here. Come on up here, Mike.
Right. Well, Joe and Bob, thank you. You guys have been amazing. Everybody hear me okay? I may actually... Does this work as well? Aha, it does. So I want to start off by just saying thank you. You said earlier that this is the best chapter in America, and you're not going to get any argument from me, actually. I think the Boston CF community is legendary, and I mean that because all the different parts are pretty legendary when you think about it, right? So obviously there's the leadership and the fundraising, there's the chapter. That has been number one so many times. But there's also the care teams, right? Amazingly good care teams. There's amazingly good pharma, leading for some of these new treatments. So that's why I say the CF community is so legendary. So here. So I'm going to start off by saying thank you. Thank you for making this really, we hear it all the time, but really the most exciting story in medicine right now. And I mean that. As a quick aside, we actually had a chance to teach a class at Johns Hopkins in intersession between the fall and the spring semester, and it was 3 weeks long. And basically, there was each of the weeks was just 2 classes. And the first week was taught by Peter Agre, a Nobel Prize winner, and he talked about things. The second was the dean of the hospital. The third one, they asked me to talk about cystic fibrosis to finish off the best story in medicine. So there's a bunch of pre-med students at Hopkins. We talked about really the CF story. We talked about how to take on a disease. They're all ready to go conquer the world, really because of what's been going on in the story here. So nights like this, people like Joe, people like Bob, people like Patrick have made that story possible. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about the science, though, because it's been an amazing, amazing time. So I'm going to hit 3 key things to start off with, but we're going to do 2 things. We're going to talk about the modulators, which obviously have been in the news. They're sexy. They're going to really transform the way we do CF. But I think it's also really important to realize that there's a whole other part of the story that we're going to need to be pushing ahead on, in which the foundation really says this is just as central to our mission. This is the things like anti-infectives, anti-inflammatories, mucolytics, because we know that we need to make progress there as well, particularly because once you have a lot of structural lung disease, the modulators can make a big difference, but they need some help. That's because that inflammation is still there, causing some trouble. So I just want to go through that, but let's start on the big news and hit those 3 things. So we all saw, and congratulations to Vertex, this new approved drug, Symdeko. So it sounds like Kalydeco, Symdeko. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but Symdeko. And let's just talk a little bit about the take-home message of what that means. I actually just pulled this off. It's not too many diseases where you have to change your slides every other week. And that's really what's been going on. So Symdeko, which was, you can literally see this was just announced, is what I would say is this is another option for people who've been on Orkambi. Okay, so really the most common type of CF, the F5 weight del homozygotes. Symdeko is probably a little cleaner version than Orkambi, so particularly for people who were unable to take Orkambi before, or perhaps had drug interactions, this is going to be something that's going to allow them to get the benefits. There's also another 26 mutations of people who were on Kalydeco. That it's clear that this is actually even a better version, or better, more effective for them than Kalydeco alone. So I think this is it was big news. I think that I have some people that I was talking to today that I know their child is now going to be able to benefit from this because they weren't able to take Orkambi before. So, but to me, this is actually just another step forward where we're really heading. Okay, that I will put up here just because everybody always asks, what about those other mutations? This is the list of the mutations that are approved for Symdeko. Like I said, F508del is the one that you need 2 copies of. All these other ones, if you have one of these, it doesn't matter what your other mutation is. And it'll be something actually better than Kalydeco alone. So let's go to number 2 here. And I want to mention this because I think it is something, an example of this of cystic fibrosis leading all of medicine again. And that is one of the big things that happened in 2017. And actually at this year's CF meetings, we actually stood up and said, and I sort of led off the meetings by saying that 2017 was as transformative a year for CF as any we've had in our history. And one of this was because of this FDA-approved expansion of Kalydeco. So what does that mean? So in May of 2017, the FDA actually expanded the number of mutations that were eligible for the use of Kalydeco, this drug that we know is very effective at treating the underlying cause. And then again, in August, they added in another 5 mutations. And there was a couple reasons why this was such a big deal. One of the reasons is because obviously for everybody who has some of these mutations, this allows them to have a new therapy. That's number one. But the other was actually something that opened up the door for many other people, and actually was unique even for medicine. So what they said, and I just put this in here because I think it's a good thing to learn, this is from the FDA press release. It says the agency based its decision, based this approval, in part because of the results of laboratory testing, right, which it used in conjunction with clinical trials. This approach, and this is the key, this approach provides a pathway for adding additional rare mutations of the disease based on laboratory data. And that was sort of long, and it was a mouthful, but here's what this means. So we saw that list of new approved mutations, but there are a whole bunch of other rare mutations where we sort of wonder, could they also benefit from these new therapies? The problem is there's a lot of rare ones. There's over 1,000 different CF mutations that 5 people or less in the world have. I'll say that one more time, 1,000 different mutations that 5 people or less in the world with CF have. So you can't do clinical trials with that type of approach. But what they did to open the door here, and it's something that Vertex is already working on, other companies are going to be able to take advantage of in the future, is the idea that, hey, once we figure out this is effective and safe, we can start testing in the lab some of these rare mutations to see if they may benefit as well. And this is unique not only for CF, which is obviously the most important one, but it was the first time outside of cancer that the FDA had said we can use laboratory tests to actually add to the label. So this is another reason why it was so transformative. What I want to do is just to play a little video that we played at our national meetings, which talks about some specific people who benefited from this approach or who may benefit. The approach is called theratyping. So that's a 75-cent word, which basically means using laboratory testing to see which mutations may benefit.
Let's see, here's the ursodiol for your liver.
That's for the morning.
Don't you do one in the morning, one at night?
No, I do 2 in the morning.
Okay. How's school this week?
It was good.
My daughter, Haley, was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when she was 2 weeks old. Haley's personality is kind of laid back, a lot of fun. She's very kind, caring, gentle-spirited. She's the one friend that everybody kind of likes to hang out with because she's just a good person.
My name is Callie. I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at the age of 5. My mutations are the Delta F508 and A455E. My friends would describe me as caring, strong, and compassionate. When I was in the hospital for, as they call, a tune-up, I got the call that I was approved for ivacaftor, and it's an indescribable feeling, but especially for me because as my symptoms were increasing and they were symptoms that I had never had before, getting that text that I was going to be able to start ivacaftor was huge. I think one of the biggest changes that I actually noticed right away was an increase in energy level. I truly believe that's just because my lung capacity is getting better. I can take a lot deeper breaths than I was before in just the short time that I've been on it.
Hi, I'm Haley. I'm 12. Some of my biggest fears is having a surgery and then not having cystic fibrosis cured.
Haley's mutations are unique because they are more rare, so there's not enough people in a study to even do a study at this point in time.
If I were to get on a modulator, then it would help my shortness of breath and make me feel like I could go run and I could go play with my friends. It'd make me feel good.
I think it's so important for this research to continue on these modulators to be approved for more mutations, because to know what it's done for me would be huge for other individuals that I know who struggle more to be able to have this amazing opportunity.
Ready? Yep. My hopes and dreams for Haley is that one, she can live out on her own because she thinks she's going to live here forever. And I would really love to see her be a flight attendant because I know that she wants to be able to travel the world and experience new things.
If they find a modular for me, I'd say thank you. Yeah.
If I was able to talk to, any of the researchers or individuals who have been doing these studies, I think a big thank you would be probably the biggest thing, and just that I hope they truly understand what kind of impact they're having on people with cystic fibrosis.
So the reason I wanted to highlight is because I think as we hear about these new drugs, these new approvals, that's the pathway for being able to expand even to the unusual mutations, all right? And then I want to make sure that we talk about the third one on here, and that's the next generation of drugs, what we call the triple, you hear it called that. And that's the thing that's really going to transform CF as compared to how we know it. And I'm just going to show one slide that we've probably seen before, but I think it highlights why this has such potential to make such a difference. So that yellow bar is just looking at the percent of correction of the chloride channel, the cystic fibrosis chloride channel, and that yellow is Kalydeco and G551D. That's the level we know makes a big difference for people with cystic fibrosis. If we can meet that, this is an assay using cells in a dish, okay? And so we're aiming for that yellow. When we look at lumacaftor, ivacaftor, which is Orkambi, and this would be the same type of levels for Symdeko. You see that yes, it's definitely an improvement. We're improving that chloride transport, but once you take those two drugs, for instance, lumacaftor and ivacaftor, or tezacaftor, ivacaftor, this Symdeko, and you add a third drug, you get dramatically more effect. Actually, what you see in that effect is actually something that is way more potent than even Kalydeco for G551D, which right now is the gold standard. And we're not talking by a little bit. And so this is obviously incredibly exciting. One of the reasons why Symdeko's approval was such a big deal is because two of those drugs make up two of the three drugs in this combination. But we weren't sure exactly about the amount of effect on lung function. And one of the exciting things from 2 weeks ago was Vertex releasing their phase 2 trials with this 3-drug combination. And so I'm just going to zip through a little bit, but the bottom line was for people, and this is a key thing, this is strong enough so it can treat people with even just a single F508del mutation. It doesn't really matter what your other mutation is. This is confusing. It makes it easy. If you have a single F508del mutation, you can potentially benefit. And this gets us 87% of all people with cystic fibrosis. And what could we see when treated compared to placebo for this group? A 13% absolute improvement in 28 days in lung function, a 50 millimole drop in sweat chloride. That's down below what's normally considered diagnostic. A dramatic increase in quality of life. So this is starting, these phase 3 trials are starting in the second quarter of 2018. As Joe was saying, this is not a someday thing. This is actually happening now. This is something that we're going to be seeing, and there's just more and more confidence. And we're going to, anyway, this is the thing that's going to change CF. The other thing is it's not just Vertex. We want Vertex to be wildly successful, but we want some other people to be wildly successful as well. And they are actually going in and starting these triple trials as well. AbbVie Galapagos has trials. Proteostasis has trials that are going to be going on. There's a couple other companies that have drugs that look just as impressive in this, who are sort of laying low in the weeds right now, but are headed our way, and we want to make sure that they move forward as fast as possible. But this data is the data that's going to transform CF. So what that would do is that would get us to probably 93% of all people with cystic fibrosis. I want to make sure we mention that last group because we're not leaving them behind at all. I'll mention one thing, and actually I think I know it is a Boston company. For people who don't make protein, who feel left out by this, we know that we have to work as hard as ever for them. We actually have a trial that's going to be starting this year with Translate Bio. This is delivery of RNA in nanoparticles inhaled into the lungs, so it doesn't matter what your genes say. This provides the code to be able to make it. It's early. I'll say it's early, but it's a first stop. And I'm going to turn on the jets because I know we want to make sure we get people home tonight, but I just want you to get a little feel for the breadth of things that are going on and what you're enabling with nights like this. So, modulators absolutely are going to transform CF, but we know that we continue to need to make a difference for the anti-infectives, anti-inflammatories, all the things listed here. So I'm just going to zip through them. We spend more money, way more money right now on anti-infectives and anti-inflammatories, all the other things besides modulators. As a matter of fact, if you look right now in terms of antimicrobials, antibiotics, there's 120 different research projects that are being funded. You can sort of look at each of these different types of problems. There's 54 different companies, 33 new ones in 2017 specifically developed new antibiotics. I just want to mention one that we know has been an issue, and this is what we call NTM, Mycobacterium abscessus, or Mycobacterium avium intracellular complex, that we've actually formed a consortium of sites that we know are going to focus on this and try to get better treatments. I'm going to mention the anti-inflammatories. We know that this is something that can help patients. We've seen it with ibuprofen. There's several programs that are moving forward. Celtaxis, Corbus, both have trials that are ongoing right now, Laurent and Polyfor, because we want to make sure that we have everything we can along with the modulators. Overall, in 2017, you can see 13 different big investments in companies that we thought had the most promise to be able to make a difference for people with CF. And that really, one of the reasons we want to make sure that we have nights like this, that we continue to raise funds, is because we are aiming for way more than that. We want the science fiction stuff, the stuff that modulators used to be, which was science fiction, which now are coming true. We actually want to have what we call the one-time cure, and that is ways of editing genes that people could sometimes eventually say, I used to have cystic fibrosis, or my lungs used to have cystic fibrosis. That's actually possible. It's not as close, it's years away, but it's something we know we need to be working on right now. The last part is we know this is a team effort. One of the things we've just known more than ever is, yes, we need the science, yes, we need drug companies, yes, we need fundraising, but really what we need is patients and families with CF to partner as well to figure out which of these is going to work. And so part of this has been a messaging campaign specifically to make sure that people realize how we're all in this together. So I think the last couple slides here, one of these is actually a video that talks about this clinical trial messaging campaign for trials, which I think may try to get you to enroll into a clinical trial because you'll be inspired.
They call them trials, clinical trials, like they're hard to do, some heroic thing. Whoever named them trials hadn't met us, hadn't seen what we do, what we go through every day just to do what others take for granted. We don't complain. Whoever named them trials hadn't met our clinicians, doctors and nurses who chose working with 30,000 or so people scattered across the country. Whoever named them trials hadn't met our researchers. With us every step of the way, they'd like nothing better than to be out of a job just for our sake. Whoever named them trials just didn't get it. Clinical trials are the path, our path to a cure. Move one little letter and the whole picture changes. Raise one hand and you're blazing a trail. Join us, become a trailblazer, and help create the path to a cure.
Okay, last couple of slides. I just think it's worthwhile. Obviously, we talk about the science, but one of the things to remember is, yes, science for the cure, but the other big thing is making sure that people with CF have the best possible care, the best possible chance to live a full life today, right? And so part of this has been investing in care. the care teams here, which you have such great ones. Obviously, what they do is supported by nights like this. And I'll just mention another special one, lung transplantation. This is something that 3 or 4 years ago, when I came, or 3 years ago when I came to the foundation, really this was not something we were involved in, but we knew that we had to be. So I had an opportunity to be at the White House 3 years ago and say, we're coming into this space, we're committing $15 million over the next 3 years, and truthfully, we're going to exceed that. And particularly to be able to make sure that we take on something that is going to affect some of our people that we need to get better at. And then the last part is engaging our community. Hopefully you've sensed this from the foundation. We want to be better listeners than ever before. We want to actually be part of a team, right? And we all take this on together. The opportunity to actually have advisory councils in everything we do, asking people with CF and family members to help guide us is a way to really make sure that the patient voice is present in everything we do. And then the last part is we know that there's a lot going on in this space right now, right? We want to make sure the best drugs go forward, but we want to make sure that people have access to them. And so I know many of you here I've seen on Capitol Hill, but we can make a difference there in making sure that people with CF have access to medicines. And then the last part is our chapters, Pam and her team, who are as good as the best around, right? We want to make sure that they have all the best resources, the opportunities to have rewarding career development, and continue to lead us in the community. So part of this is going to take money. You know, I think our medical spend is $240 million coming up. Our annual budget right now is over $300 million and increasing significantly. Our approach is basically we want to make sure that we support anything that we think can make a difference for people with CF and make it go as fast as possible. That's why we know, even though we have some money, that we want to bring this all the way home. The whole idea is we don't want to stop at just modulators. We want to get this that eventually people can say, I used to have CF. And so with that, I'm going to actually end with this last 2 slides. This is a picture which I really like. And this is a group that's probably like this, but from the late 50s. Okay? And at the time, there wasn't a lot of hope. But now we look back at them and say, oh my gosh, look what they did. Right? Look, their work now made this possible. What I'm hoping, and I'm pretty confident about, is in years future, people are going to look at a picture of this room and say, oh my gosh, look what they did. They're the ones who actually cured CF. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to make an incredible difference. This is a great community. Thank you for making it possible.